I've met some interesting people. Done some crazy things. You'd think that there wasn't much that could take me by surprise. You'd be wrong. The world is full of stories and science and things that amaze and confound me every single day. Incredible mysteries that keep me awake at night. Some I can answer, and others just defy logic.
Are man and monster closer than we think? In New Jersey, a woman and her son are attacked by a huge winged creature.
He was just frozen in terror.
Is it a demon from the 18th century? In South Carolina, a giant lizard-like beast terrorizes a motorist.
I wish I knew what was tearing up these cars.
Are reptoids from an underground world stalking us? And in Wisconsin, a ravenous and terrifying creature appears on a remote country road.
It looked like a large wolf head on top of a really husky, furry body.
Was it a werewolf?
Yeah, it's a weird world, and I love it. You know, I love being in the woods. At one with nature, there's so many wonderful things to see and hear. Look at this little guy. But sometimes forests can be dark and downright terrifying places where you can stumble across things that defy the senses, things that are far more horrific than you can possibly imagine.
Lori Winkelmann is a mother of three. She lives in southern New Jersey, next to an isolated forest known as the Pine Barrens.
It's very unexplored and unfriendly, I guess would be the best description.
Lori and her family moved here in 2003. It was then they witnessed the weird and eerie atmosphere of the forest firsthand.
There were no squirrels, there were no birds, there was nothing. It was just this quiet, still forest that was very creepy.
The family decides to avoid the woods at all costs. But on February 18th, 2004, an event takes place that would haunt them forever.
The night stands out in my mind originally because it was the first snowstorm we had down here.
Lori ventures outside to turn off the Christmas lights. Her 10-year-old son, Glenn Jr., insists on coming along town.
I had made a buddy system for my kids so that no one was ever allowed to go out alone.
As Lori unplugs the lights, she suddenly notices something is very wrong with her little boy.
He was just frozen in terror.
Lori soon sees why. Someone, or something, is watching them from the forest.
It was horrible. It was huge. It had an ugly face, a snout. It had horrible red eyes, little horns, and I just remember it had a horrible bulbous forehead. It was the worst thing I've ever seen. It was just hideous.
It also has wings. Terrified, Lori and her son run for their lives, but the creature takes off in hot pursuit.
It swooped over our heads, heading in the same direction we were, towards the house. When we got to the back door, it was right over us.
Scrambling inside, they think they're safe, but whatever attacked them is still out there.
There was this like clacky metallic noise on the surface of the roof. I've never heard anything like it.
Terrified, Lori and Glenn huddled together for hours, waiting for the monster to crash through their roof.
You've seen us go to a lot of places.
When they emerge the next morning, The creature is gone. But what they see is almost as frightening.
We went outside and we saw the tracks exactly where it landed. There were footprints. We couldn't believe it. Perfect prints.
Lori takes photos of the prints. She's determined to solve the mystery, so she shows the evidence to rangers at a nearby state park.
I just said, please let me know what this is. Could it be a cougar? Could it be a bear?
It's neither. It's something beyond logic.
The older gentleman immediately just said, it's the Jersey Devil. You just had a Jersey Devil sighting. Well, I was embarrassed, to be honest. I didn't want to scare my neighbors or look like I was insane and seeing Elvis or UFOs.
But Lori and Glenn aren't the only ones. Thousands claim to have seen a demonic-like monster in the Pine Barren. They call it the Jersey Devil. This mysterious entity is believed to have inhabited the forest for over 200 years. Some believe its origins are closely linked to a local witch named Mrs. Leeds, who gave birth to her 13th child in the 18th century.
Legend has it, I believe it was deformed. It was horrible, ugly, horrible eyes, snout, horrible forehead. It grew very large and it was very powerful, and it broke out and escaped.
Was the winged creature that attacked Lori and her son the deformed child of an 18th century witch?
I know what I saw, and I know animals. I just felt like prey. For the first time in my life, I have never known what it felt like to be prey. And I just felt like that. It was awful. It was just really awful.
What exactly stalked Lori and her son in the woods behind her home? Are demons real? Women's Studies professor Deborah McGregor doesn't think the Jersey Devil exists, but she does have a monstrous theory.
Monster births were understood to be children of the devil.
During the 18th century, some children were born with serious defects due to infectious disease and intermarriage. They were known as monster births.
The mother of a monster baby would be damned, because some people would say that she had sex with the devil.
Professor McGregor claims that not only did Mrs. Leeds suffer a tragic monster birth, but it occurred during a period of Christian fanaticism in New England, which made it seem like a sign that dark, supernatural forces were at work.
You might wonder how people got the idea of something being born with claws and horns. I think we don't know. The power of legend amazes me in terms of how long this story of the Leeds family should go on. This is from 1735 to 2011. I mean, that's really amazing. Someone still remembering that, a sighting of such a creature. People might have thought, well, that's the way a monster looks.
Is the Jersey Devil a deformed infant born to an 18th century woman? If so, then how did it turn into the legend of a supernatural creature?
It'll keep your kids from going too far, and then maybe they won't get eaten.
A woman and her son are attacked by a winged creature in the woods behind their home. Was it a demon from the 18th century, or a legend inspired by a deformed baby? Psychology PhD student Ian Miller agrees the Jersey Devil is a type of monster, one that inhabits our minds.
The Jersey Devil is a great example of a meme.
According to Miller, a meme is an idea that is transmitted from person to person, infecting our brains much like a virus or a viral video.
Memes can describe all sorts of phenomena that we experience on a daily basis, whether it be fashion trends is a good example, or the adoption of different technologies.
Miller thinks memes enable legends to survive for hundreds or even thousands of years.
The Jersey Devil
Hair or had fingernails. They would be interested in knowing whether you had any food with you. And their clothing, if any, would be in tatters.
Wow, this story is getting more and more monstrous by the minute. First it's some witch having sex with the devil on her. Now this other guy actually believes that sweet, innocent children could become horrifying monsters.
Is he crazy? Hey, no playing ball. Get off my lawn. I don't think he's crazy at all. Could Laurie Winkelmann really have mistaken a feral human child for a hideous monster? Professor Candat says yes, thanks to the atmosphere of fear and terror inspired by the Pine Barrens.
If you're living in a place and you hear something out there every night, you're already primed to be frightened.
Candan feels creepy environments make people think they're dealing with something much worse than it really is.
This leads to belief that one is dealing with a subhuman sort of beast who's apt to be dangerous. In point of fact, there rarely
Are man-beasts living among us? And if they are, would you want to live alongside a cold-blooded being whose emotions and thoughts are completely alien?
In the summer of 1988, Liston Truesdale was the sheriff of Bishopville, South Carolina.
This kind of is a sleepy little community.
But things soon began to change. In a bizarre series of incidents, someone or something began attacking parked cars. But these were no ordinary acts of vandalism. The cars looked as though they had bite marks.
This was a very serious situation that attacked in cars, and we didn't know what we had. We didn't know where it was something that escaped from a circus truck or somebody's pet bear or what it could have been. We didn't know, and we just had to find out the best way we could. I wish I knew what was tearing up these cars. We didn't know what we was up against.
Liston would soon find out when one night a terrified high school student named Chris Davis shows up at his police station.
Chris Davis was a kid, a 17-year-old boy at the time, and he started telling me what had happened to him. I couldn't believe what I was listening to. Chris Davis had a flat tire. He stopped to fix his flat tire side of the road. He finished fixing the tire, put his tools in the car, and looked across the road.
Davis can't comprehend what he sees. A gigantic green creature is watching him from the forest.
It was a huge, what he described as 7 feet tall or more, with big red eyes, looked to be a greenish in color, but he really didn't know, and had 3 fingers. Whatever it was scared the hell out of him.
The creature begins running towards him.
Chris Davis jumped in his car and slammed the door quick and sped off like a bat out of hell.
But the creature isn't giving up so easily.
The creature jumped on the trunk of the car and then onto the top of the car and was looking down at him through the windshield from the top.
Davis swerves the car, trying to dislodge it.
He thinks he threw him off. He had to throw him off.
Mystified, Sheriff Truesdale doesn't know what to make of the story.
I said, draw it. So he drew it.
Truesdale is stunned by the picture. It shows a lizard-like being that stands upright like a human.
And it wasn't anything like I ever seen.
But Sheriff Truesdale needs to know if Davis is telling the truth.
We asked him if he would submit to a lie detector test. No problem, he said.
Davis passes the test. He isn't lying. But what had he seen? Davis's testimony isn't the only report. Soon dozens of others come forward to describe their encounters with a giant, lizard-like creature. But not everyone is convinced.
Well, a lot of people didn't believe it, and a lot of people thought it was a hoax.
The creature disappears into the
I come back around as quick as I could, but I never did see it again, and I didn't say anything about it. Then, a few days later, my buddy said, "Frank, I hear a racket in the woods out here." So I took the shotgun and walked out with him, and my wife followed me. And right under that light, she got bit by a rattlesnake. The next day, after I carried her to the hospital, which she came out fairly okay, behind me here, there was a whole lot of damage in the woods back here, but I had no idea what did it. All right, unless it was what I had seen just a few days before.
Mitchell is convinced that the thing he saw is still out there.
It's apt to be dangerous. In point of fact, they're rarely dangerous.
So was the Jersey Devil
I always do, lit my cigarette and loaded the airplane as usual and taxied on out to the runway.
Mitchell brings his plane up to takeoff speed.
Here I am coming 75 miles an hour, ready to take off.
Suddenly he sees something that turns his blood cold.
This thing come out about right where I'm standing and just simply walked right across this runway right in front of the airplane. This thing was 8 or 9 feet tall, or better. Looked like a big monkey maybe, with a larger nose maybe than a monkey would have, much taller, and a brownish, greenish looking skin. It had a lope in its walk, and it didn't run, it just walked across the runway.
It's too late to abort takeoff, so Mitchell keeps going. But as soon as he's in the air, the creature disappears into the woods.
I come back around as quick as I could, but I never did see it again, and I didn't say anything about it. Then, a few days later, my buddy said, "Frank, I hear a racket in the woods out here." So I took the shotgun and walked out with him, and my wife followed me. And right under that light, she got bit by a rattlesnake. The next day, after I carried her to the hospital, which she came out fairly okay, behind me here, there was a whole lot of damage in the woods back here, but I had no idea what did it. All right, unless it was what I had seen just a few days before.
Mitchell is convinced that the thing he saw is still out there.
I still hear a strange sound to this day that I cannot describe to you. I used to walk almost to the swamp at night, but I don't go anymore at night, period. This property right here I have loved ever since I've been here. However, now I'm curious about it at night, but I do love this property, but there is something out here somewhere in these woods around that swamp. It's a long swamp, and he may not be on this property right now, but it's a long swamp, and he can be anywhere, and I promise you he is somewhere.